Innocent Victims is an interesting film, but I'm really glad that I did some additional reading after watching this, because I won't spoil it by saying exactly why, but this film is no longer accurate. Obviously, as a snapshot of a period in time, yes, it is correct. Well, as far as I can tell, it's pretty accurate, but things happened after the fact, and in fact, in the last maybe 15, 16 years, new things have come to light that maybe change, in fact, definitely change, some of the things that happen in this film. So if you watch this film and you find the story to be interesting, please, please, please do additional reading, because things with the case changed quite dramatically. So on its own, in that sense, it's actually really more fascinating than it would have been if things hadn't changed. But I'll say no more about the aftermath. The film itself was released in 1996. It's directed by Gilbert, written by Scott Whisnant and Guy Waldron, with a cast including Ricky Schroder, John Corbett, Rue McClanahan, and various others. And this is based on the true story of an individual called Timothy Hennis, and he was accused of murdering a mother and her two daughters. This happens, or I guess the bodies are discovered very early on in the film, and then the film accuses him, and it's about what happens thereafter. And he was wrongfully convicted of these murders at the time, and this is that story. And my initial notes were, I don't know how accurate this is. And then I did some additional reading, and as I said, the film itself seems quite accurate for the time. But watching it on its own without doing any additional reading, you definitely won't have the bigger picture for the full case. Please, please, please read some, even the Wikipedia article, and there are some sources there, of course. It's so fascinating to watch this film in isolation and then do additional research. And I do thoroughly recommend doing it in that order. That's the way that I did it, and I personally found that to be the most fascinating experience, to go in with no knowledge and then to gain knowledge that even the film couldn't possibly have predicted in 1996. As a story, it's presented really well. It's presented in a way that's really engaging. As I said, it got to the point immediately with the discovery of the bodies and then the investigation aspect. That was really fascinating to follow. The performances are really great. I love the courtroom scenes. Big courtroom drama fan. I thought they were delivered really, really well. We have some quite interesting camera work and some quite suspenseful music. It's a very atmospheric film. We have some great dialogue, particularly in the courtroom scenes, and it is a very fascinating story. And if this is where the story ended, that would be fascinating. But knowing now what I know and what came to light this century, yeah, it just makes it all the more fascinating that this was turned into a film. And then the story continued. And it's just, it's intense. It's really, really fascinating. So if you think the story is interesting and you want to learn more, please do some reading. But I do recommend, and you don't have to do it this way, but I would say watch the film itself, come to your own conclusion about the case, about the characters, and then do additional reading. And I think you'll find it to be quite a fascinating story. So needless to say, I thought on its own, Innocent Victims was a well-presented narrative. It's gripping, it's atmospheric, the performances are great, the story pacing is brilliant, very, very well done. And then as part of the bigger picture, definitely fascinating, and certainly a film that I'm happy to recommend.